Well, in the 1930s, mothers of debutantes used to draw up lists of suitable and unsuitable men, NSIT, not safe in taxis, or MTF, must touch flesh, next to a name. It meant no invitation for him. Well, in the 60s, girls used to whisper WHS for wandering hand syndrome when they spotted notorious men advancing, apparently. Now, it all seems rather coy and outdated nowadays, but we call it nowadays what it is, sexual harassment. Are unwanted advances just a part of life? Liz Fraser, are they just a part of life, stuff that people should have to deal with?
Well, I don't think they are things that we just have to accept. I don't think it's something we have to sit back and go, well, it's always happened, it will always happen, therefore it's okay. But yes, I do think it's a part of life, and the fact that you've just gone back through the 60s and 30s, and obviously it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And by the way, we're not only talking about men making sort of unpleasant physical contact with women, it goes women to men as well. And what it tends to be is a slightly more powerful character, taking advantage of that, if you like, over somebody who they perceive to be less powerful, yes. And in fact, interestingly, the people who end up in those positions of power are often people who are slightly more confident, perhaps not in themselves, but outwardly. You know, you get to that position of power by being that certain way, often. And so, unfortunately, when they reach that point, they then use that to intimidate others or to get things that they would quite like to have. But I do say that I think it weakens women and men to whom this happened to always complain every time.
Why? Why does it? Why?
Because I think that part of being human and part of being people is being tactile. I'm a very, you know, for some people, and that it should be okay for me to talk to you and go like that from time to time. I know I agree with you. Now, that if that disturbs you, I sensed from earlier that it wouldn't.
If you're pardon the language, you're not touching his bum, though. It's very different.
I'm trying to, but he's sitting there, but, you know, give me a chance, Nicky. But, you know, I just think that there's a lot of play between people, and I think that one of the things which differentiates humans from animals, well, we are animals, actually, but from different types of animals, is that we do sense other people's feelings, and so I think it's perfectly natural to, I don't want to say have a go, that gives all of the wrong impressions, but for humans to flirt with one another sometimes, but I also think it's part of being a human to sense this isn't okay, I'm going to back off now, he or she's not liking it, and likewise it's the same for me to be able to say to you, for example, if I felt you were coming on a bit strong, say that was ever
just say it, Liz.
Then I could I would be grown up enough and I would have been raised strongly enough that I could say to you, do you know what, it's fine, it's cool, I don't want this, sorry, and then move on.
Laura Bates and the Everyday Sexism Project, is it as simple as that?
I don't think it is, and I think it's fantastic that Liz feels able to stand up for herself in that way, but in not every situation and not every person is able to. And I don't really buy that it somehow weakens women to say no to something. I think we should be saying no to it. And I think that actually even to define these things as unwanted advances is rather euphemistic. That suggests that it might be a bit of a misunderstanding, that these silly women might be getting the wrong end of the stick. I run the Everyday Sexism Project, and we've collected 20,000 women's experiences in under a year, and these things aren't just a case of a hand on the knee. We're talking about young, vulnerable women or older women, often, as Liz said, with men in a position of power.
It's a spectrum as well.
And it goes way up. It goes through groping, grabbing, sexual demands from people in a position of power where you might not feel able to speak up.
Women should take it further.
Yeah, and I think we as a society need to be sending the message this is not just a part of life, and of course it doesn't just affect adults.
Of course I agree with what you're saying, and if you want me to go on the record and say I think it's fine for men to grope women, you're not going to get that out of me today, because of course I don't, I'm not a moron. But we do have to be very careful that with all things where there are grades of things, you know, there are always grades of things, there's black and white and loads of grey in between. What we have to be very careful is that the people who do need to be heard, the people who are really coming under a lot of pressure from people, which makes them very uncomfortable, frightened, intimidated. They have breakdowns, all kinds of things. We need to hear that. And if there's a huge amount of background noise of every time someone's in a lift and someone goes, well, you know, you look a bit nice, love, if every time that comes to a complaint procedure, we can't hear the times when it really is necessary, and I do worry about that.
I think as a woman, it disturbs me to hear you say that as a woman.
I'm sure
with
it
all
does,
due respect.
yeah.
And I think we actually represent such a different culture here in the Western world. If you actually think about what women go through in many other cultures, they're so far behind us in terms of progress. It's all very well for us. To me, it kind of sounds like a bit of a first world response to go, you know what, it's background noise, just get over it, love.
Glenn Wilson, author of the Science of Love, Science? Anyway, this is interesting stuff. You're talking about the chemicals that are going on, the chemical undertow to it all. But why do some men do it
Programme actually discusses
when it is clearly not on?
Well, they sometimes misread the signals because women, as a kind of evolutionary strategy, emit a wide variety of ambiguous flirtatious signals for various purposes, not all of them sexual, but there is something about the male brain which tends to read them as being specifically sexual. And that's when he
Alison's agreeing with you.
I think that's right.
But anyway, carry on, there's more.
Sorry.
No, that's the fact of the matter. The abuse of power, of course, that is a real issue. And
of course it is, but what's going on chemically?
What's
going on, you know, this chemical undercurrent?
Well, there are complex sex wars going on. Men emit a pheromone called androstenone, which has the capacity to deter other males and females, for the most part, except when they're ovulating. Then they find it attractive. And in retaliation, women emit copulins, which have the capacity to blind males to the differences between the attractive and unattractive ones. So they're less able to reject an unattractive woman.
You are less able to reject an unattractive woman. I was just trying to get my head around the concept of us emitting a chemical which makes you less able to reject an unattractive woman.
Yes, I give this as an example of the fact that there is a pheromone war going on below consciousness.
But we also have a frontal lobe, which we've developed over the last 6 million years as well.
Yes,
I mean, no disrespect, Glenn, but that sounds like pseudoscience nonsense. Men know perfectly well the difference between flirting and harassment, and most men don't do it. You know, it's really patronising to put this into, you know, essentialist
brutish instincts and desires is not to say
about
we shouldn't
abuse of
seek
power.
to contain them.
Liz actually,
we have to do that in favour of civilization.
Yeah,
so I'm not saying we should always act on our...
He's just seeking to explain. Carry on, Holly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nonsense, isn't it? We are talking about a range of behaviours, as Liz has said. So this might be unwanted sexual touching. It might be making sexual comments in the street, which at night can be very intimidating, humiliating, scary. You know, we did a poll with girls about their experiences in school, and 1 in 3 girls said that they were groped or experienced unwanted sexual touching at school. Now, that's not acceptable. That means that girls and boys are growing up in an environment which is telling them that girls are sex objects, they're not equal, they're not to be respected. It has an impact on grades, just like in the workplace, as we've seen with the Lib Dem allegations. It has an impact on women's career progression, how they feel about themselves, about their bodies, and so on. It actually puts women off going into certain careers.
So what about those who say, OK, but where's the room for flirtation? Because most
flirting is fine, normal human interaction is
might
fine.
Not be somebody else's flirting.
The clue is in the question, unwanted.
Yeah, but
unwanted and non-consensual.
I agree with you. I have 2 teenage daughters and a 10-year-old son, so I see my role as the mother, and obviously my husband feels the same way, to teach them how to deal with this. This is one of the things that we do. You know, when this happens, you know, what do you do? And it's not only the role of the person giving out these signals, it's also the role of the person in how they respond to that. And quite frankly, I think humans have a nanosecond in which we know very, very clearly whether the look you just gave me has just been reciprocated. And I can take it half a second further. It's quite nice, feels kind of nice, but then we have to just kind of go, that's enough now.
Yeah. Let's take it over here to Richard wants to say something. I want to ask Alison too. Richard.
I'm very pleased that the sexual game is being recalibrated, as it were, in favour of women. But I think grown-up women do realise that men are very slightly unglued in their presence.
Yes.
I mean, and that is not going to quickly change.
What do you mean?
Oh, blimey, haven't you noticed yourself? I mean, if you're heterosexual, if you're around women, you are quite prone to be slightly less in charge of yourself than usual. And if you don't get that, then you live on a slightly different male planet. But I've said, and I care about it actually quite a bit. I'm very pleased that the relationship between men and women is being recalibrated against the casual assumptions that used to be made.
I've got a daughter and twin boys, and I think my job here is to teach the twin boys how to react towards women, not to teach the daughter how to put this on.
very
Liz.
much back to what I said to begin with, that it's about humans sensing what's OK for other humans, and we do really need to be in tune with that. And if you should, as an intelligent being, you should sense when someone's not comfortable, and that's where you back right off.
Is that not the case? You should sense when somebody's not comfortable. That's when you back right off.
Absolutely, and the focus should be on the person who is choosing to make the advance. We see this a lot in the media. When things come out with women, we often see this reductionist, euphemistic way of talking about it, where we immediately start saying, well, how should women react? What should women do? In the same way that we say, why are women going out in short skirts, instead of saying men shouldn't rape? And it's really important to shift that focus.
Yeah.
But can I just say before, my last point, because it is an important point, please let's not make this about men abusing women. There are women who abuse men as well, and it goes both ways.
Holly, quick point, please.
I think that if we're talking about advances, men tend to be the ones who do make the advance towards women, and it's not generally the other way around.
Although, Damien, I heard you in the background there, if I may come on that point, allow me to hurry it on, if you will.
I'm merely pointing out that this is about mainly women being abused, as it were, but that's in terms of the reported cases, and I think a lot of men don't report cases of unwarranted.
In Islam, it is very clear that man and woman in a public environment can interact as long as they understand that they must treat one another with dignity and honour.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much indeed. Debates continue on Twitter. Londonderry next week. Have a great Sunday from everyone here in St Albans. Thanks for watching.